Hi guys, welcome to the Kaliana Yoga video course. I'd like to give you just a brief orientation, a brief background, and theoretic understanding of where I'm coming from as a yoga teacher, how I approach my yoga practice, and what yoga has meant and means for me. I began yoga in 2007-8 when someone recommended I try it out for some low back pain that I was having. I went to a pretty standard vinyasa flow, gentle beginner yoga class. And while it actually did assist my back feeling a little better, but didn't totally heal it until later for many different reasons, one of which being the original style that I was practicing and being taught was not necessarily therapeutically conducive for my low back condition. But what became most obvious and prominent for me in those early classes was not the low back feeling better. It was a deep connection with myself, with my body, with my breath, and with the transcendent principle, or the ground of being, if you will. Before I even knew that yoga was a spiritual practice. In fact, I too, being raised in the South, where such things at that time were not readily available or understood, did not even know that yoga was a spiritual practice. I thought it was kind of exercise, physical therapy, stretching, which is still very common today for people to think that. But it is, and has always been, an ancient art and science and tradition of reintroducing you or reconnecting you, reuniting you with yourself on every layer and the source of yourself as well. The word yoga comes from the Sanskrit root yug, which is where we get our word yoke, Y-O-K-E, not egg yolks, but yoke meaning to connect or to unite. That kind of bar that holds horses or oxen together to pull a cart is called a yoke. So yug or yoga implies a connection, which is in fact not so different from the Latin root of religion, which is religare, which means a very similar thing, to reconnect, reunite, remember the connection, remember the union that's always there. From relative to ultimate, to mind, body, spirit, and to God. However you conceive of it. In fact, in the ancient yoga texts, which were not necessarily dependent on the Hindu religion, because you can practice yoga outside of any religious context whatsoever in the institutionalized form of religion. But it was born in the Hindu culture. And so the Hindu culture itself, believe it or not, unapologetically uses the word God in many different forms. So in the West, where yoga has become kind of this shallow, new age kind of hybridization of Hinduism and Buddhism and new age spirituality, and in which the word God itself is kind of shunned or avoided, or there's an allergy to even the understanding the concept of God. The original intention of yoga was to connect, unite, or to remind or reawaken the always already connection and union with yourself, with God, through the physical body, through finite form. In addition, physically speaking, yoga was used as a tool or prerequisite to open the body up physically and energetically, to open the meridians, or in Sanskrit, in the yoga texts, the meridians are called nadis, N-A-D-I, which literally means little river. So whoever was able to psychically see the meridians, and those of you who have studied Chinese acupuncture and medicine, or just seen a poster on the wall, they look like little rivers, right? But they're not in the gross body per se, or the gross dimension, physical dimension, like blood veins and vessels. They're energetic, kind of between physical and energetic meridians or lines or nadis that looked like little rivers, so that's what they called them. So to open up the body, the joints, the meridians, the nadis, the breath, and to quiet the monkey mind in order to be able to sit more comfortably for longer periods of time in meditation and contemplation beyond the body. In fact, the physical practice of yoga was only one very small sliver of what yoga meant and what yoga still means in the original yoga cultures. So in the West today, unfortunately, yoga has become synonymous and reduced down to just the physical practice. And it is not that. So I followed a path of teachers, styles, traditions from North Carolina to Chicago to Denver, including Ashtanga Yoga, Iyengar Yoga, Anusara Yoga, and others. And I was actually very, quote-unquote, good at those styles. Because past life, for sure, as well as my own kind of athletic background, where I have a strong mind-body coordination connection, as well as I've always been very flexible for a guy. And I was always praised by my yoga teachers because I could do all the poses. I could mimic what they looked like in a book just after the first time of seeing it. Now, for sure, that was from some past life reawakening, because I've done this before. I know it just lives in my body, like other musicians or artists or dancers who can just pick it up like that. That has been me over the years in yoga. However, it wasn't until I discovered Kayut Yoga, which I am certified in. I have certificates in a 200-hour kind of generic yoga training from Chicago, where I was very briefly introduced and trained in many different styles, but then did apprenticeships and deeper programs with different teachers in those styles as well. But the initial 200-hour certification program was kind of a broad overview, not in one specific style, that I'm very grateful for having that approach. And then I'm also certified in Kayut Yoga and studied directly for 2.5-ish years with Francisco Cayute. And when I discovered Cayute, that really changed my entire perspective of the physical practice of yoga. Now, Francisco and myself, because we've had conversations about this, differ on the spiritual component, the mental component, the meditative component of yoga, and that's great. That's no problem at all. Physically speaking, however, physiologically, therapeutically, along with my background in massage and body work, it all kind of came together when I worked with Francisco. And coupled with my already understanding and approach and teaching of the spiritual practice of meditation and self-inquiry, fit very nicely with the way Francisco approached asana, which is the physical practice of yoga. In that, what I call nexus knots, which is simply an unresolved samskara from a trauma or a drama over the years in your life or in another life that has carried over till now, and you have avoided that nexus knot. You have avoided that unresolution by no fault of your own, just to survive day-to-day life, to not feel pain. And that can be physical, mental, emotional, energetic. These nexus knots exist and live on each of the layers of the koshas. Now, this is my theory. This is not Francisco Cayute theory. I can put that aside for now. What I say from here on is basically my entire integration of all the different styles, all the different studies, spiritually, physically, body work, therapeutically, yogically, that I've been trained in, plus my own intuition, plus my own further research, plus my own downloads that I'm receiving to take it to the next level and make it into my own thing, so to speak, even though I don't have any attachment to it as mine. What I am teaching is new, and I always knew that I would not call something Kaliana yoga or label it or brand it as my own until it was clearly and distinctly something different than the rest. Of course, yoga is yoga, and it has its roots in ancient times. So there will be crossover, there will be similarities that makes it yoga and not karate or basket weaving. It's yoga. But at the same time, it fits perfectly in the packaging of the Kaliana way and how I teach and approach the 5 basics, meditation, healing of samskara, enlightenment in general, discovering your true self, because not only was I able to very naturally reconnect with myself in a very profound way through the body, beyond the body, which is another approach to asana that I have, is to explore consciousness through the physical realm. You don't have to explore consciousness just on the meditation cushion. You can explore consciousness whenever, but there are interior and exterior components. Always. But when we're using the exterior of the physical body in yoga to take a dive into the interior world of consciousness, that's something that I've never exactly been taught, but is how I approach my own practice. So, these nexus knots, or unresolved traumas and dramas, affect us on a day-to-day basis, whether we know it or not. And sometimes we do know it, but we ignore it or we deny it. They are there and they want to be released, they want to be processed, they want to be healed. So in the physical practice of yoga, the way I teach it is to put the body in positions and angles and poses that not only open up the joints, open up the meridians to be able to sit longer, open up the breath, quiet the mind in meditation, but to also, just like meditation, bring to the surface everything that you have otherwise pressed down. So that's why the goal of yoga is not stretching, feeling good, getting the warm fuzzies. That might come as a result, but the goal is to find where the edge is, where the sensation is, where the range of motion is, where the pattern is, where the habits of avoidance are, where the tendencies are, what the reactions are in the nervous system, in the mind, in the emotions, in the energy body, in the physical body. And be with it. Be with the intensity. Now, it is counterproductive if you overpress. Your body can actually go into shock or reaction mode because you're being overzealous. And if you're approaching anything from the ego, of course, that's going to come back on you eventually at some point anyway. But a gentle, mindful tiptoeing up to the edge, feeling, noticing, observing whatever's arising, whether it's a physical sensation, a mental pattern, an emotional release, an energetic movement, or spiritual reconnection or awakening. Be with it. Trust that there's a deeper benevolent process that's wanting to happen. And the rest will take care of itself. In fact, you don't have to do anything. So especially those of you over-flexible people, I want to remind you that an over-flexible body is just as pathological, potentially, if it doesn't have appropriate integration, as an over-rigid body. And Francisco Cayute was the first one that told me that. He was the first one that didn't praise me for being super flexible and for the pose to look all fancy and like it does in the posters in the books. There's many reasons as I consider why my body was so over flexible. I didn't actually have appropriate sensation in the postures to feel the boundaries. I didn't have the structure. I could make it look a certain way, but it was not integrated. I could do a full splits, but my sit bones were compromised and I was tearing my hamstrings. And I did, in fact, have some little aches and pains that I knew were from yoga, but I just overlooked it, thinking, well, that's just how it is. In my knee, in my hamstring, in my wrist. That all went away, in fact, when I started approaching yoga in this other way. So, if you have a medical condition, a diagnosis, surgeries, major injury, of course, heed the advice and the direction of your doctor. But don't lead with fear. Don't lead with preconceived ideas. Sometimes those ideas can get in the way of the progress and the natural rebalancing and healing and harmony that your system, your body's wanting to make. So, approach it with feeling, not with thinking. Right up to the edge. Remember, mild to moderate and manageable. Be with it, and then you can decide as you become more adept at the practice and more connected in with yourself how to adjust, how to explore, how to approach it. Back off from the edge, stay with the edge, move into the edge. And so, Kaliana Yoga, being now very proud to have 100 sequences of my own, that are a very intuitively guided, sequential exploration and combination of some very ancient styles and more contemporary ones that I've learned and have received in my own practice, things that I play around with just when I'm doing yoga on my own, things that I've kind of made up or feel like I have been given to pass on to you. I do give credit where credit's due, but at the same time, we all borrow from the ancient yogis who made it up in the caves or were given it by extraterrestrials in the beginning, thousands of years ago. Anyway, so what makes this unique as Kaliana Yoga? Because as Ken Wilber says, transcend and include. I have included the best of my predecessors, all the other styles I've been trained in and have practiced. Iyengar, Ashtanga, Anusara, Kayut, Power, Vinyasa even, Vinyasa Flow, Yin, Restorative Yoga. All of those are in my being, and I've been technically trained in a couple of those, including Kayut, which is my most recent influence. The sequences are both active and passive, dynamic and static, and always incorporate this understanding that I have espoused of utilizing the understanding of the 5 kosha layers: Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Yanomaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha, basically mind, body, spirit, to look at the nexus knots that are still there, unresolved, and want to be healed. So you can access a mental nexus knot through the physical practice. You can access a physical nexus knot through the practice of meditation. So it's all important. It's important to have both. I, in fact, don't know one without the other because I kind of learned them both just within a few short weeks of each other. When I first found yoga, then I started going to a meditation class right away, and they were both feeding a deep reconnection, a longing that I had had to connect with myself, with my body, to move my body. I remember discovering my hands for the first time, my hips, my heartbeat, my breath, the floor, my feet, gravity, physicality, but in a transcendent kind of way. So I've included plus transcended what I see as the limitations of each of those. And so you'll see flavors of Ashtanga, flavors of Iyengar, flavors of Anusara, flavors of Kayut, both in alignment principles as well as theoretic approaches to them. But my primary goal is healing, freedom, liberation, growth, transformation, and to make this the spiritual practice that it was intended to be. It's religious in the fact that yoga and religion, or yug and religare, have similar connotations, but not institutionally religious. So you can continue being whatever religion or not religion or atheist or agnostic, whatever you like. This is a connection with yourself and will be interpreted through the filters of whatever stage of consciousness you're at, however you see the world, whatever your experience has been, and however you also take the rest of what I teach on the interior. So if yoga, the physical body, has interior, exterior components, but is mostly kind of an exterior movement of the body with an interior exploration, then I will be giving interior cues for how to fix your mind, how to fix your attention. And this was not taught to me at all. This is very much organically born in my own practice. What I point to, what I call out, what I suggest, what I recommend is often directly from my own experience of what's happening for me interiorly, either what I have discovered and realized, what just flashed online for me, or what I have explored intentionally in my own practice. I myself practice yoga many hours a week, many days a week, in a variety of forms. But I would recommend at least 2, if not 3 or 4 sequences. For now, stick to these sequences, and we can talk later once you graduate from my first 100, first 100 sequences, what you should do next. And I might have other sequences on the way. But my plan is to send out 2 sequences per week when you're doing this course with me. And I would recommend you definitely do those 2, as well as maybe repeat 1 or both of them to make 3 or 4. Not just the one that you liked the most, but something that struck you. Remember, it's not just to make you feel good, it's to reveal what's beneath the surface. Another little mnemonic that I have come up with, or was given to me from somewhere else, is you have to peel back the layers, because that initial layer is what you have developed to present to the world to avoid either yourself or to avoid other people seeing whatever's been pressed down and ignored over the years or over the lifetimes, just to survive. And it could just be as simple as a shoulder surgery, and it's not totally been resolved or healed, so you develop this way of moving just so that you can reach to the top of the cabinet to reach what you need to reach. You don't ever access and go into the edge right where the restriction, right where the scar tissue, right where the samskara is. So, healing of wounds through the layers of the koshas, accessing the interior domain of consciousness through the physical body, becoming more connected to yourself, to God, if you will, to the ground of being, to that impersonal presence, intimately impersonal presence, to be more comfortable to sit for longer periods of time in meditation and contemplation, and to open up the meridians, the nadis, for higher energies to come in, which then also prepares you for pranayama and the other limbs of yoga from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but we won't go into those right now. So I may give some cues for how to incorporate the 5 basics, how to incorporate meditation, how to incorporate the interior domain, how to incorporate the koshas, how to incorporate the other concepts in the Kaliana way into your yoga practice. That's what makes it unique to what I'm teaching. And it's very specific to all of the styles that I have been trained in and have practiced over the years. Therefore, nobody else is teaching or practicing this. As I said, you will see flavors and inspirations from others, but no other teacher on the planet, because I'm not passing on a known lineage. I believe it's a lineage that's waking up in me from past lives, and that I'm adding to and increasing, deepening the groove of now. There's no other teacher that's practicing these sequences, that's teaching these sequences, no other students practicing these sequences exactly as I'm teaching them, because again, though they may have some exterior similarities to others, the interior component, the ultimates, the 5 basics, the Kaliana container in general, which includes a specific combination and grouping of people and influences and teachers through the years for me that no other teacher shares, no other style shares, no other tradition shares. It's specific to my journey, and I'm only giving you what I have experienced myself. That's all that I'm ever doing. And so I'm very excited to roll this out to you. I'm very excited to see the response. I'm very excited to assist you on your journey of healing, freedom, liberation, transformation. all the amazing words. The results are real. My low back has been healed. And union with myself, with God, with the world, my body, has been reestablished in a brand new way. So start where you are. No expectations, no agenda. As much as possible, let go of preconceived or preloaded ideas and training that you may have received, and just approach this freshly with me. Again, don't do it trying to mimic or to look a certain way. It's best not to have a mirror, in fact. You can use Garrett and Christy on the screen as a visual reference, or use my modules as a visual reference, but don't try to copy. Feel it. Feel it in your body. Mild to moderate, manageable, that's great. That's all you need. And the rest will take care of the rest. Good luck. Enjoy. I'm here with you. Namaste. Hi guys. After I made the Kaliana yoga introduction video the other day, I realized toward the end that I didn't complete the mnemonic that I wanted you guys to kind of keep in mind as you go along. All I said was peel, but I didn't say the rest of them. So the mnemonic for this process to keep in mind is that you have to peel back the layers to reveal what's underneath and feel it in order to heal it. Peel, reveal, feel, heal. Okay, that's all. Bye.